Welcome to the OhSoInternational podcast. We're here with the regulars at this point. We got Drew. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing very well, DJ. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. How about you, Max? How are you doing?
Yep, doing well. Can't complain.
Can't complain is pretty much how I feel about the start to our Champions League. So I guess we'll go ahead and jump right into that. We played what some have called a football match at White Hart Lane on Tuesday, and we came out with a 1-0 win, which obviously never going to complain about. But I believe there was one shot on target the entire game, if I'm remembering correctly. I just went back and rewatched the game to talk about this. But yeah, it was not the most intriguing of matches, is what I'll say. So I'll go ahead and start off with you, Drew. How did you feel watching the game? What were your thoughts?
I had watched it on replay, and I wish I hadn't. I was at work while it was being played, and I had an earpiece in and was listening to commentary. And I don't know. Obviously it started off quite promising, but even the goal wasn't a shot on target. That's how bad this game was. 19 shots, one on target, and the one that was on target wasn't the goal. I remember Vicario making a very, very good save and tipped round the post a ball that wasn't even going in anyway, so it doesn't even get included in the shots on target. So, yeah, I mean, I'll take it. I will always take 3 points, and I keep on having to remind myself, and I was in the stream earlier on having to remind a couple of people that it's the 6th competitive game of Thomas Frank's reign. So, it was fine. I'll take it. Another clean sheet. I'll absolutely take it.
Absolutely, especially given our recent penchant for allowing a goal. I'll say having a clean sheet is something that we can't take for granted. How about you, Max?
Sure.
How did you watch the game? I guess, and then how did you find it?
Yeah, like Drew, I was at work, and my work has just had us come in the office a lot more frequently than we were before. So not ideal for Champions League week, but yeah, I was able to rewatch it, back in pieces, and I felt similarly to, I think, both of you. It wasn't a lot to write home about. It almost felt like the type of performance that you'd be happy with away from home. You're like, a difficult place to go. We came away with a 1-0 win, but it was a home game, which is a bit strange. And I think that kind of came from, us not having the attacking nous that we maybe expected to start the season with, which is fine. And, Frank has said on many occasions now that defense is the priority because that was our weakness last year. So yeah, try not to rush to judgment on the attacking play and the building up of this team, but we haven't seen a lot so far in that respect. So
I was really thinking, I don't know if you two or either of you agree, like Villarreal are a very, very well drilled, well coached team. And I think you could tell, and I think it says a lot about how far we've come that a very, very well-drilled team comes in and we sort of disrupted them, I feel like, as much as they disrupted us, Deej.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that we did a good job. That obviously they had no shots on target, which we offer. We definitely, I'm not saying we didn't offer them chances to have them. We definitely got lucky in a couple of situations. But I think overall, football, you're never going to be able to keep a team to having 0 chances, but you can keep a team to having as few chances as possible. And I do think that we did that pretty well for most of the game. And I think that that's a continued, I was going to say a step in the right direction, but I guess a continual march forward in the right direction almost. We've conceded 1 goal in 5 games that are competitive. I'm not counting, obviously, the Super Cup, but I do think that there is definitely a good process there. Before we talk more about the game, as this is OhSoInternational, one of the things that I want to try to do is kind of highlight the kind of stuff that international fans have to deal with. I guess obviously that everyone has their own trials and tribulations and whatever, but I do think that having to watch the Champions League stealing away at work is kind of almost a global experience for the international fan. So I guess I'll ask a question because I have an answer for it, so I'm gonna lead you guys on before I get to answer mine. But do you guys have any strong memories of watching a Tottenham game at as like hiding from the boss or something happening? Like is there any like one that sticks out in your memory? Any particular game?
One thing that I one thing that I always think about is, well, first of all, the obviously the Ajax game is that was going on like the second leg. Obviously, was I was in college and in the middle of my like cafeteria, and there was like these group of guys. I didn't like have the streaming to watch it, but I saw these group of guys like huddled over a laptop. And I was like, please tell me they're watching the Spurs game. And then I went over and was able to watch it in that way. But a more recent one was the game against Sporting at home when we had that ridiculous VAR decision off the, I forget if Kane cushion headed it to Emerson Royale or vice versa. Was it that one? Okay. Yeah. And I like, in the middle of the workday, just like ran around my apartment, just absolutely screaming so loud, like killed my voice doing it. I was so gassed. And then obviously it got pulled and my roommates were all laughing at me. So
I've been really fortunate, but one of the things that I've done, I've had 2 careers since I've been here and moved over in 2008. And in both cases, when I first applied for the job and went for the interview, I did specify to both bosses, that I'm an avid Tottenham supporter. And at the time, quite into England, not so much now. But one of the rules is that I say, I'm a very capable worker and I'll prove that to you. I said, but during game time, there's going to be an earbud in, or there's going to be a screen. Like if I'm sitting at a computer, there'll be a small screen open and I'll be following a game. And I'm like, that's just kind of, you have your thing on a Saturday, Sunday. I said, it's, if I need to take some time off, which I have done in past, I've taken time off for like quarterfinals, semifinals. But yeah, usually I've been able to convince my upper management that I'm worth keeping around, in spite of the fact that I like to watch football every other Tuesday. So yeah, no, I've been very, very fortunate, touch wood, that it's been allowed. And I even get like people in other departments now will come in and ask me how the game's going. And people in my department, like, I'll make noises and stuff. And even my boss will look over at me and he'll be like, goal. No goal. So very basic, like Neanderthal caveman terms: goal, no goal. But yeah, it's a good time.
Well, at least they kind of get it, and honestly, that's about as much as you can ask for over here, specifically. But yeah, no, I've had my fair share of hiding. I work pretty much entirely remotely, so having a camera on in a meeting and then just having like my phone propped up against my laptop screen, having it like right there. Well, that's how I was watching the Villarreal game the other day. Hopefully this doesn't get back to management. But
right.
Yeah, no, my favorite memory of being in like was obviously probably the Ajax game, the second leg, because I was working at the time. And I took like my 15-minute break for like the last 5 minutes plus stoppage time. And like I walked outside and I was watching the game and they scored, and I was just like running up and down like the parking lot behind my like office, I guess. And I had to come back in, like sit down and like talk to like customers and stuff. Like I wasn't like about to explode emotionally.
Yeah.
So I think it's very funny, especially because like you have like the job where like, I don't know, I feel like football at its best is like an explosion of emotion, but then you kind of almost have to like pretend that it isn't a lot of the times, especially for European games. I think that's something that's a fun quirk of being an American fan, and I guess even a global fan. Though I don't know how many other places it falls in the workday. If you're from not like the U.S. or like North America, feel free to let us know how you guys get away with watching Champions League games. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and talk about the performance. We kind of already touched on it a little bit with talking about the defensive like setup. And I guess I'll go ahead and start with us choosing to play Bentancur instead of Polina. Max, how did you think that was? Did you expect that to happen? And how did you think that kind of played out over the course of the match?
Okay, well, first of all, shout out to Ghetto and Miklos. Thanks for hopping in. Yeah, I had kind of a thought bubble about the Bentancur and midfield thing, and it's almost I'm trying to think of a way to coin it, but it's almost like the ladders toward like the steps toward or like a proper modern six, basically. And I feel like Bentancur is almost between he's like between Paulinho and then like the six that we eventually need to buy, basically. And so, we saw, I think, a pretty. I mean, first of all, I'd say Bentancur was great. I think he was good. He's not like the most progressive passer. I would get frustrated with him a lot of times last season because he would just kind of keep things ticking over and not even in a tempo setting way. It just felt like he was kind of settling for some simple passes. But in a game that you need to maintain some sort of hold on, I think it's still great. And yeah, he wasn't at, you could see us get cut through in the midfield a little bit more frequently than you'd imagine would have been the case if Paulinho was in there. But then, like I was saying, you get kind of more passing upside. You get a player who can half turn and receive, and that allows your attacking players to stay further up. So, yeah, I think it was reassuring for me to see a Bergvall, Sarr, Bentancur midfield work, even though it wasn't like an amazing performance, but, be functional. And so, but yeah, as I say, I still don't think it's like completely evolved as far as what we actually need in the sixth position.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I do think that one of the things that was, I guess, positive about it is that it showed that we can kind of maintain our defensive stability without having Paulinho in there every single game. Because no matter how good Paulinho is, he can't play 60 games a season. Like every professional footballer's body is going to break down if you ask him to play that many minutes. So it's good to see that we can maintain some sort of level of stability. Drew, I guess I'll pass it over to you to talk about the rest of the back line. How did you? I mean, they've kind of just continued their reign of I guess, dominance. But did you see anything in particular that stood out to you?
I mean, I think probably just to touch on Paulinho as well, because I just think it's obviously worth reminding everybody that he's had very little football in his legs in general. So we're sort of nursing him up to, not that he's necessarily injured, but we're nursing him up to something resembling full fitness anyway from a fairly long layoff. So I would expect that his minutes will be managed like this until we get to, middle of November, December, when, he can really start to maybe take on some more. I thought Bentancur, in the bits that I saw, I thought he was all right. I think the back line were great. I think everybody just looked a little bit leggy. And I think it was everybody looking like they're getting used to, oh, crap, we just played 2-3 days ago and now we're playing again. And it's just having to get into that sort of rhythm. That on top of the fact that you put Xavi in there. And I think everybody's thinking or expecting Xavi to work miracles. And even I did. I kind of thought he would hit the ground running a little bit more than he has. He's had some lovely touches. But I think he still needs to obviously find his groove. I want to be nice to Richarlison because I think he started off quite well, quite positive, but I don't know. I don't know he works very, very hard for the team. I'm not saying he's not a good asset, but he's just not really doing it for me up front. Like the first couple of games, he looked like he was on it, but it seems to have tailed off already, and I can't quite put my finger on it. And I don't know whether it's just because we're a little bit one-sided at the moment because everything seems to be going down to Kudus. But I'm sure we'll get on to further up the field. I thought the back line were fantastic, barring VDV almost getting himself a penalty. That was a little bit risky, but I thought for the most part, I thought they. No, that's very true. Not even close in the end, but I've seen stranger things given in terms of like a red card because it was, I don't know, because leading to a goal scoring opportunity or something like that. It just looks really, really clumsy. But that aside, I thought they were all fairly good, and I think for what it's worth, we've been pretty worth these clean sheets. I don't think it's not been all luck.
No, I completely agree. I do want to say for like the penalty, non-penalty, red card, non-red card shout, I think the reason that it was not given was because of Vicario's positioning. Because like as far as I'm like aware, you're right. I think that the red card would have had to have been given for denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity, and because I think Vicario was already like close, like had the ball in his hands by the time the whistle was blown.
Right,
I think that's kind of what gave Van de Ven the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
And
I could see
I don't
that.
think
I
Romero's
wonder if
that
it was
far away
10,
either.
if it was 10, 15 feet or 10, 15 yards further up the field. There's maybe a little bit more of an argument, but I guess the proximity of the keeper, I can completely understand.
We actually got, I think, a little bit lucky that it was as close to the penalty area as it was. Because if it had been, I think, 10 yards further out, I think it's a free kick. But I think it's probably a red. But fortunately, we don't talk about it because it wasn't. Speaking of potential reds, there were, and I guess potential penalties. There were a couple other places in the game that spawned some controversy, but I think they kind of evened each other out over the course of the game. I think I still don't know what a handball is, but at this point, I'm down to believe that you're just allowed to dribble the ball in the box as long as you can pretend like you didn't know it was there, which might be the way. If that's the way that the rule is going to be done consistently across the league, then whatever. I'll wait for consistency to happen with the handball rule, but And then there was another one where I think someone came through the back for Richarlison. But the one I wanted to talk about to get you guys' opinion on, just to show that we're not completely biased towards Tottenham, unless you guys, of course, give the answer that's biased in the favor of Tottenham. What did you think about Xavi's potential sending off? That one was a little bit dicey for me.
Probably should have gone, Max.
I just don't think the ref was that good in general, to be honest. Like the ref was just pretty bad, and it kind of ended up being like listen, I'm feeling fortunate in a couple different situations, but I also think it kind of like evened itself out in a little bit. Like the classic, thing with a non-VAR ref is like you get some, you don't get others. So yeah, I mean,
would you take this? Would you take the first one wasn't quite a yellow? So therefore, I think maybe the referee has been a little bit lenient.
They always, that's like always what they do too.
Because
they'll be like if the first yellow they get is kind of orangey, then they're like, all right, it's so.
Then maybe don't give that first one, so you don't put yourself in that position. I don't know. I'm but a fan.
On the handball, did you guys? Because I think you have to look at the handball in the context of the other handball that got given in the I don't know if you guys saw this in the Marseille Madrid game. Like basically the defender makes a great challenge and is landing on his arms like naturally, and basically just hits the ball into the ground as he's landing, like doesn't do anything to adjust his arms, and the ref gives it. And it's like, at this point, should we just have each ref have their own set of traits and rules that apply to that particular game? Because there's no consistency.
It's going to be like I can't remember which. I don't know if it was FIFA or Pro Evo, but back in the day, there was one or two editions where it would give you the referee and it would give you a basic idea of how the referee was going to be, like if he was lenient or not. And I think you're just going to have to start doing that. They'll have to start putting their own little manifesto in before we start. It's going to be this guy at this stadium, and you can expect that he'll be very lax on the offside, but very strict on tackles above the waist and all this crap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I also that kind of reminds me. I have like I'm trying to get some movement on this idea I have, where basically I think refs should be on the pitch with some sort of noise cancellation in their like earpiece or some sort of headphones, because the way that they get swayed by crowd noise is like you think that would be what you'd learn early days when you're learning how to be a ref, but it completely, like you see it at like St. James's, right? Like Newcastle's home games. It's like if that was played with no crowd noise, you'd be like, what is happening? Like anyway, I could rant about it, but I just wanted to get my idea out there. I want to get some traction going because refs are too easily affected by crowds.
Refs just running around with massive headsets.
Yeah, like mine, you know what I mean? Just
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think that'd be nice, but that's part of what makes home field advantage fun, though. Is that's why you build it up. That's your one small contribution to the match when you go up as like a match going fan. And anytime any of your players are like looked at the wrong way, you get to yell, and then maybe the referee was like sneezed or something, had his eyes closed. Like, oh, these guys all saw it.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know. I think that's part of what makes the game fun. But I guess we'll kind of move on to like the rest of the attack. We kind of talked about it a little bit with it being like we're not exactly lighting things on fire, I think is fair to say.
Mhm.
But we are, like I said, we're creating like you guys have all said as well, we're creating a solid foundation from which we can build. And I want to kind of talk about like, do you guys have any like thoughts as to why the attack like isn't clicking as it maybe should, but as you kind of want it to? Like, obviously we all want to see goals. Wins are more important. I'm not saying that we should trade all of our defensive stability for a goal, but scoring goals is cool too.
I mean, from my perspective, it's kind of twofold. I would say, I think we're still not playing with a number 10 is the reality of it. I think we got Xavi, and it's like, okay, we got a number 10, but he's playing as an inside kind of pocket forward off the left, not at pure 10, right? So I think and I have this in my notes as well, like it was great having Sarr and Bergvall as kind of crashing eights or whatever, box crashers, but is that our best case scenario in midfield? Probably not. Like, probably, having Xavi central and a winger. I think Brennan Johnson could actually be pretty good with Xavi next to him. And then even if you're gonna play Xavi on the left, I don't think you can play Spence on the left. And it's like, I'm the number one Jed Spence fan, but like, we can rest Porro and play Spence on the right. And Udogie is so good on the overlap, and his his angles being a left-footed left back, I think would improve things drastically. And that's like the simplest thing I think that could be adjusted and have instant impact.
Yeah, I do think that we're still kind of nursing Udogie back to health a little bit.
Yeah,
like you can tell we're giving him 15-20 minute cameos instead of starts. I'm curious to see when we'll determine that he's fully match fit, but I do think those are both good points. Drew, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is it's not. I mean, I completely agree with Max, especially having Xavi on that as that pocket left as he describes it, because then you've got him and Spence that both want to kind of cut inside, like you say. There's no overlap, but in addition to that, it's not helped because everybody, when you do go down Kudus' side, typically people are already cottoning onto the fact that he's the outlet and he's getting doubled up fairly quickly. And I don't think it helps. No, it doesn't help. It's been unfortunate. That's probably better wording. It's been unfortunate that Solanke hasn't been available, because I think him centrally as the guy receiving with the ball, with his back to goal and being able to turn either one on the left or the right to goal and then spinning himself. I just don't see enough of Richarlison doing that. He's just a little bit clumsy with the ball to feet and then the outlet ball back out again. So it's just, as I say, it's unfortunate that we've not had Solanke, and it's also unfortunate that Tell just has been a little bit hit and miss. And it's also unfortunate that that's coincided with Odegaard not really having much. Like, it's all that side. Like, we have people that can play that side, but none of them seem to be, for whatever reason. And I'm not, I mean, these are young kids, so I'm really, really not trying to roast them or be hard in any way. But I mean, it would just be, you could see how much different it would be if you had if you had Kudus Mark II over there that was just very commanding, had a great first touch, and was just willing to go at his man constantly. And if you had that balance on both sides, I just think you'd see a little bit more potency up front at the moment. And unfortunately, it's just very one-dimensional, even though it's been mixed up and we don't have the same, it's not Werner and it's not, Johnson on the right. It's different, but it's still stagnant. So it's just going to take a bit of time.
There's a certain Brazilian trapped in Manchester that could have fixed those problems, I think. But who knows? Maybe we'll go back in for him in January.
But that's reassuring to know that the club agrees with us in that sense,
Yeah.
Like, we were a city board member away from this issue probably not being in the conversation. So
right, and we've also with Randall Kolo Muani to come in. I mean, obviously he's nowhere near match fitness either. And the really nice thing about that is that once everybody does get kind of fit and firing, you do have quite a lot of pieces, quite a lot of puzzles. I mean, if let's just say, for example, if all of those guys were playing sort of, 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, you'd be looking at, I mean, probably you could do, obviously, Kudus on the right. You could do Randall up front. If you needed to, you could have Richarlison holding fort on the left. If you felt you needed that sort of, the way that the game was going, if you needed that, or you could play with either Odebert or Tell, or you could play with either of those on the other side, and you could put Kudus on the left, and you could have him inverted and taking shots with the right foot. Like, there are so many bits to that once it gets going. It's just, unfortunately, I mean, and I'm in total agreement with the way it's been done. They've obviously reinforced the back line first, and that's the most important thing. And yeah, it's just gonna take time for these guys to gel.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. One thing I do want to give Frank credit for is I think kind of almost immediately, like Max said, kind of seeing this issue of we don't have the players to build through the middle. And instead of saying, we're going to try to build through the middle anyway, I think that we've pretty much kind of abandoned the idea that we'll do it, which causes problems, obviously, because when Villarreal kind of started to come loose a little bit at the midpoint of the second half, and when the game became a little bit more transitional, we had a few more attacks come at least through the middle, not up the middle maybe, but instead of playing a long, slow ball over the top, you'd play it to Sarr, who turned and play it to whoever was on the wing, Xavi or Kudus or whoever it may be, and that created a quicker passage of the ball that then allowed for us to get better kind of crossing opportunities and out of that. So I think that was good. But I do think, you can see, I have some timestamps. It would be really nice if I could, pull up a match, but I would get struck down by the content moderators the second I even
Overlords.
thought about that. Exactly.
Premier League overlords.
Yeah, well, this time it's the Champions League overlords, but
very true.
We're playing in basically a big circle. Where we have both Sarr and Bergvall almost on the back line. And then they'll fall back to create a passing triangle on the touchline. But I think that it's interesting to see how Frank is adapting to us not having that profile and still trying to set us up for success as good as he can, which I think is interesting. Hopefully,
I don't know
eventually...
Oh, sorry, go on. Well, I didn't know if you finish and then I'll go.
Hopefully we do get Xavi through the middle soon. I do think that the idea is kind of to bed him in a place that's less physically demanding and less defensively demanding because he doesn't know the system yet. But I think his best position for us is in the middle, and you kind of saw that when he was obviously the most dangerous when he picked the ball up kind of in that left half space, which he can take in from the left wing, but I feel like it's more dangerous when you also have the left winger or a Udogie offering that space out wide.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you've got everybody, the one thing with last year, it was the wing, it was too much inversion on both sides. Now it's just on that left side because Kudus doesn't mind going out wide and putting the ball in. But you've got everybody over there on the left side at the moment that just seems to want to invert and come in. I don't know what you, if either of you picked up on it when Frank in his presser said that we basically hadn't been playing fast enough for Xavi. And there was a couple of times where I noticed on the field, there was a couple of times in the first half of the West Ham game. And then I think it was just once in this time because I think something else was just him telling somebody off. But he was trying to get the ball flowing quicker. Like it's almost as if we're taking the 5-6 yard pass and he wants the 15-yard pass. He wants us to bypass the nearest guy and get down the field quicker. And I just thought it was interesting that Frank's already seemed to have picked up on that and referenced that in a press conference. So we need to kind of up the tempo and we need to play to him because he's ultimately going to be the catalyst for most of the things going forward, I think.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about Xavi so far. I don't think To be fair, I don't think the consensus has been negative. I think it's, everyone kind of understands that it's a matter of time and him moving centrally eventually. I also thought that Villarreal were more physical with him than some of the, than West Ham were realistically. So he struggles with it at times, but I do think that his build and his like sense of space kind of allows him to escape those situations. But I did want to say, like, with my point about him doing kind of better than what his output has suggested, even though he does have an assist so far, I do think that he's done a lot of these kind of like passes out from the left wing to like Bergvall, especially because he's been on the same side, and then Bergvall like goes and then he plays it short, or he like shows and then he like Xavi wanted a through ball. And I think it's a matter of chemistry in that situation. I think he'll slowly build the connections with his teammates and kind of understand, who likes which kind of pass. And at that point, I think it'll be in a really safe and good situation. Because it's just not fully like connecting at this point. And I think that's fine. I also wanted can we highlight Johnny's comment too, the first one? Because I know we kind of got off talking about selection, but I do think that this is a great point. I was going to say Moani should come off the left. We've been super cross heavy under Frank as well. So having not only a Solanke or Richarlison good in the air in the middle, you also get more physicality and aerial threat off the left side. And you can double up Kudus, but you can't double up Kudus and Porro, right? Porro's delivery is even better than Kudus's. So I think this is a great option. But yeah, back to Xavi.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think that I was about to highlight this as well, as I think that, right, one of the things that I noticed a lot of the time is Kudus would be like ready to put a ball in, and he'd take his like cursory glance up towards the middle, like the 18, and there'd be like Richarlison and like 5 guys in yellow and the goalkeeper, and those are not great odds. And even just having one more guy who you feel confident can go up and win an aerial duel, and put it vaguely goalwards, is something that's really, really helpful in those kinds of situations. But we don't, I think, want to like overcommit our midfielders in those areas, because if the ball like bounces out, you need someone to be able to like sweep that ball up, recycle possession, and prevent the counterattack. But I think having someone like Moani and even like potentially playing Richarlison off the left as like a super sub at times once Solanke's healthy, I think will let those crosses from Kudus and Porro have like a lot more, output, I guess. Whether maybe not in terms of goals, but goal scoring opportunities that are created, because there's just more to aim at. I also want to I guess we'll take this time to talk about Tel. I think with the way that the season is going to go, I think it'll be hard to find consecutive games, just because we'll kind of be playing in the Champions League every other week basically, and he is unfortunately not in the Champions League squad. But I do think that I do want to see Tel out wide. I think that I think he looked way better when he was like given that kind of like ability to go up against someone who's not as physically imposing as a center back, especially a Premier League center back, and just dribble a man and be given a little bit more time, kind of in the same way that Xavi is being played out wide, to like give him time to like bed into the team. We have to remember how young Tel still is, and he's really hasn't really even been here for that long, and most of the time he's been here, the squad has not been in the healthiest state. So with some of these guys, this is like him playing with them for the first few times since they've been back to health, since he's been at the club. So I do think I think he's another person, because I kind of fall into this trap with everyone who's young. I assume everyone who's young is short, and it's just not the case with either Bergvall or Tel.
None of them are.
Yeah, exactly. None of these guys are short, except for Porro. But Porro's not young, so that's
he's prime age now.
Point.
Yeah,
exactly. But I do think that like he's another option for someone you can aim at the back post. Obviously, I don't think his aerial ability is as good as Kolo Muani's, but he's one of the best things you can be is tall for a ball that's up high in the air. So I think
We
he's
do have
someone
quite a nice. It's quite a nice blend, right? Because obviously when Solanke, when he's fit, you got Solanke, Richarlison, and Moani, who, for all intents and purposes, should all be able to do a job in the air because of their size. And then you've got Kudus, who's just powerful. But he's not tall. So I do worry. Kudus, Xavi, Odegaard is quite small, but it's also quite fast and intricate. So if you could, a mix of those with a couple of big guys up front and vice versa, as I say, we've touched on it a couple of times. There's just a lot of sort of potential there. Yeah, be exciting once everybody sort of hits fifth gear.
Do you guys know about the height myth with Odegaard? He's like reported 6 foot everywhere, and it's like
there's no way.
I thought he was
everywhere
like 5'6".
I know, everywhere he's 6 foot. I think he does have a little bit of a slend. I don't know, his posture maybe or something. But for me, he's got to be 5'10".
I'm fact checking you on this.
I thought he was small. I thought he was small.
I just checked again to make sure I mean, it should be on most sites. I've seen it. It's 6 foot.
Because I know Tell's got to be there, isn't he? He's like 6 foot.
Tell is, and you can see.
Yeah, and you can see for sure. So you need to just get a picture of the French under 21 and see what they look like next to each other.
I think I've seen pictures of them next to each other, and it's Also, I want to push back on something you said, DJ, about the minutes being, especially mainly Champions League when we have the tighter schedule, because you're forgetting about the Christmas period. I'm looking at it right now. Right, we have Palace away, 3 days later Brentford away. 4 days later, Sunderland. 4 days later, Bournemouth, and then have a little break. But you get my point. I think he'll play in a good amount of games, and I also, hopefully we're not in this situation, but we are an injury away from being able to put him back in because there's I don't know if it's new, but there's a UEFA policy where if there's a long-term illness or injury, then you can bring someone in. So. Yeah, Chelsea just did that with Buonanotte.
I've found a picture of them standing next to each other holding the Europa League trophy, and there's no way.
Can you show it?
Listed as
or will we get copyright?
It should be fine. They're not the same height.
And yeah, Tell's leaning over in that.
That's
he's got to be to me, that's 5'10".
Yeah,
he still is taller than I think he still is taller than I give him credit for, because I honestly thought we were talking like Aaron Lennon sort of size. I'm doing him a huge disservice, taking 4 or 5 inches off the guy.
He kind of falls into the double trap of both being a more technical player, who I always assume that they're shorter, and then also being young. So I also
wonder also as well, like when he turns, he's got a really, really low center of gravity. Like I've seen him turn, and he's almost like on a 45-degree angle versus the pitch.
Yeah.
So just very deceptive. All right, Odegaard. All right.
Hope he plays this weekend.
He needs to hit the gym a little bit and needs to hit the weight room, son.
I want to see an Odegaard start in the next, at least the next 2 or 3 games.
No, that would be something. I'm here for that. I love watching him play. He's
French front line as well, couldn't we? Potentially, it could be a super French front line. And I'm as an English person, I have a hard time saying that without a little bit of something in the back of my throat. But yeah, Odegaard, Tell, Moani. I don't know. It might be something there.
It might be.
Said this on the last one. You buy highly rated French players, you're going to be in a good position, really, no matter what. It's
pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, I am. I guess the last thing I'll ask about in this game is I do think we kind of touched on it. A lot of the more promising attacking moments were done through the conduit of Mohamed Kudus, who, by the way, continue to say what a signing he's been, what a player he is. I love watching him play every time he gets close to touching the ball. I'd said when he joined that he has a penchant for giving the ball away in a kind of a frustrating manner, and I think maybe I'm biased, but I kind of feel like that's even kind of been clamped down on a little bit. He obviously still does give the ball away because he'll try to dribble through everybody if they line up for him, but even when he loses the ball, he's the first guy to go and try to get it back, and as long as you're doing that, then I'm here for it to an extent. But I guess the thing that I'm curious about, and whether I don't know if there's an answer to this. Obviously, there's not an answer to it, but what do you guys think we're becoming a little over-reliant on Kudus in our attack? Do you think that that's something that will change the way that we look when he rests? Because he'll have to rest at some point, obviously, or he'll be kind of forced to rest. because, like I said, nobody can play 50, 60 games in a season. How do you think that we replace Kudus's output, I guess, for when he doesn't play?
I think it's linked to our lack of kind of what we're talking about, is playing through the middle and playing on the ground. Like Kudus, I would argue, is a better outlet than, well, it's obvious. I think he's easily a better outlet than Richarlison, but I caveat that because I think even in the air, he's a better outlet. And I think, when we've been struggling in build-up situations, it's kind of been us defaulting to, having him basically hold on to it and bring us into the game. And you would hope that, the improvement of Xavi and a central 10 and just the general, build-up play of the team would kind of disperse things a little bit better. But I agree that we're a little bit over-reliant. And I think it's making the game plan pretty easy against us.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be another time thing again. I think you just going to need to get a couple more games in it. I mean, hopefully, he's got a couple more games in it without even being close to being risked at the moment. But I would argue that potentially I would rather, if needs be, I think I would rather see Xavi rotated out to the right rather than anyone else, because, and this is just on a needs must basis, but I don't see, whenever I've seen RB Leipzig and whenever I've gone through any of the Xavi stuff, because I had to do quite a deep dive because I hadn't really seen much of him play. And when we signed him, obviously you do the obligatory, let's find the longest video with all the stuff that he's done. And for the most part, there did seem to be a lot of footage of him picking up the ball, and admittedly picking up the ball centrally, but obviously he's right-footed, so his natural inclination is to drift right. And what I wouldn't want is to lose the width on the right, because we already don't have it on the left. So I could just see a scenario like, if you do have to rest Kudus, I mean, Johnson, bless him, he's great. And maybe over a few weeks and being coached by Frank, maybe it'll be different. But I can't help thinking that it's just going to start getting more and more narrow. I don't really even want to think of a situation where Kudus isn't in the team at the moment, because of how sort of, I want to say poor, but because of how one-dimensional we are on the left. But yeah, I don't know how you guys feel. I think I'd just rather see. But then, does that take away from Xavi creative centrally? I don't know. This is why I don't play Football Manager, and this is why I'm not a manager.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if there's going to be a player that you're over reliant on, like at least Kudus is pretty robust and not the most injury prone. But it does kind of tie into something that seriously, knock on wood, everyone. But it does tie into something that I was going to bring up and was thinking about, is that, I don't know, we didn't rotate that much. I mean, I guess we were able to pull out to sub some of our players early on in the West Ham game, which was great. But yeah, I do think that this like every three games thing is I just hope that Frank gets ahead of it, basically gets ahead of an injury crisis rather than plays us into one. So
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we'll definitely be able to rotate for Doncaster at the midweek next week.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see what lineup we run out for that. Speaking of lineups, I guess I'll jump into a little mini Brighton preview. I think that Jim is planning on doing one tomorrow during the day, or the UK day. So by the time most of us are awake, it'll already be out. So I don't want to step on their toes too much. Sorry if I've made promises that you can't keep, Jim, but that is the last that I've heard. So if you guys want a more deep dive into Brighton, go watch the preview that'll be out tomorrow, hopefully. But we can still do a little bit. You can take a little bit. But I guess we'll talk about, since we're talking about rotating in lineups, instead of asking for a full lineup, I'll ask for one player that you want to see play definitely, and one player you definitely want to see rested.
I think it's going to have to be a Danzo for a VDV for me. And not even necessarily because I think VDV needs as much of a rest as I think Danzo needs the minutes.
What do you mean? He got so many minutes in the game on Tuesday.
It worries me that somebody, because he seems to be such a team player, and he doesn't seem to. It literally seems like he will do whatever is necessary, and I think it's fantastic. But I think he just deserves a little bit more at the moment. And I understand you mentioned obviously touching on Doncaster coming up, but I just don't know that. I mean, is it really? I don't know. You got to wait all the way to Doncaster to get your first start. Like, it just seems a little much. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to be disappointed if VDV starts because he's my boy. I love him, but we'll see.
All right, what about you, Max?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was thinking of this exact dilemma the other day of like giving Danso his first start of the season, and it's like in that type of game. I don't know. I just don't like love the message that it sends, and I kind of honestly hoped that Danso would come in for the Villarreal game. But I would like to see, because I think you can do like Danso on the right, Romero on the left, which is okay because if teams give us the left side like Bournemouth did, I think Romero's a good enough. Thanks, Miklos. I think it's going to be good enough as far as Romero's passing, even if he's on his weak side. And then you can kind of switch it. So you can play Danso again against Doncaster and then play the other senior center back. Or I'd like to see Takai if he's fit, but I don't think he will be. So Danso to come in, I guess, and then I guess Van de Ven to be rested and turned by. I'm getting worried about everyone.
Do we know how far Dragusin is away? Because I know he's been in training.
I think
sort of a forgotten man, right?
I think he'll be ready to play.
Obviously he's not going to start.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready to play after the next international break, to be honest. That's what I would guess.
That would be my assumption. We're under no rush, I guess, to bring him back. And I like the idea of having more than 3 fit center backs. So while we have the ones that are firing on all cylinders, I don't see the reason to necessarily push him into a starting lineup. I think Van de Ven will play this match. I think that we'll see a Kevin Danso double for Doncaster and Wolves. Just because I think that'll be one where I think we can use his long throws against Wolves, as well as, I don't know. I don't know how much of a license he'll be given to get forward. If he's playing as a part of a back 4 instead of a back 3, but that's something that I think would be fun to see. The player that I want to see play, and Max, you kind of touched on it. I'm surprised you didn't say him. I want to see Odegaard play. I think I want to see him start, and I want to see one of Sarr and Bergval rested because they've kind of played a lot of minutes already. And I've watched too much Barcelona over the past few seasons to not know what happens when you play young players every single match and kind of jump on them and rely on them for every single game, and it doesn't necessarily end well. So I know that they're great. I love Bergval. I wish he could play every minute of every match, but I want to make sure he can play most minutes of most matches more than that. Yeah. So I am kind of hoping that one of them gets a rest, and I honestly hope both of them get a rest versus Doncaster. But then I don't know who you even play in the midfield. Maybe bring in some academy players, but
maybe Basuma gets a run out.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It's not even a bad idea.
It's really not.
You put Gray in for sure for that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd let Gray play maybe even more as like an 8. And obviously, both of those statements are in service of my ultimate goal of that exercise, which was to say I want Javi to play centrally. But yeah. I don't know. I think he'll probably still play on the left. I don't know when we'll see him play central, but I can't wait for the day that we do. Is what I'll say about that.
Yeah, same. I'm thinking about it now, and I realize I literally said the exact same answer as Drew. So like, Loki, let me change my answer because
I'll let you switch.
Drew's exact answer. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna say because I was gonna bring this up too. You kind of did, DJ, but I think Sarr actually needs a rest more than Bergval. He's been like arguably, I'd say probably with Romero our most important player to start the season, and he was starting to look less sharp, I guess. He was just starting to fade a little bit, I think, in that game. He came off just before the 70th minute, so a little bit of rest, but yeah, I'd like to see him rested. And then I really want to see Kolomwani play, to be honest. I just think he's the best. He's the best technically out of our striker options by a pretty good margin. I think his hold up is as good as any of them. And I just think it's going to unlock a lot of stuff with our attack. So I really hope, and I think he's pacier than all of our strikers as well, to be fair. So I would really like to see him play.
Well, if all of these predictions come true, we'll have a very interesting lineup, to say the least.
It's all possible. They can all happen.
It is possible. I doubt all of them will happen, but I do think maybe one of us will get a hit. But who knows? Who knows? I guess before we wrap up, I'll ask if anyone has any other thoughts about the Brighton game. If anyone else has any thoughts about Brighton as like a team. Obviously, they scared the out of me. I don't know how much YouTube will allow me to say in that, but they're a very scary team, and we don't necessarily have the best history against them. So, yeah. Anyone else have any feelings towards this game?
The one thing, I'm just looking at some stats now. I haven't had the greatest of starts, to be fair. We've scored twice as many goals as they have. Our XGs aren't insanely apart. Not that I don't know how much I put into that. Maybe you so more than me, Deej. I don't know. But our XG per 90, theirs is 1.71 and ours is 1.23. They haven't had a clean sheet yet. All right. Manchester City is the only team that they seem to have beaten. We've beaten them. They've lost to Everton. They've lost to Bournemouth. I don't know. It's going to be one of those ones where they'll all of a sudden, hit the ground running. I mean, I expect it to be tough, but at the moment, it looks like they're a little bit cold. And I don't know. We might just catch them.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one versus Brighton because under Ange, it felt sort of like this is going to be a crazy basketball match with a bunch of different young players, and it's just going to be like who outplays the other kind of thing. But now I wonder, like Brighton really struggle against teams like, Forest last season. They obviously got whooped by them. They never do well against Everton. They already lost to them this season. So I think if we've seen anything from Frank so far, if he does kind of take a pragmatic approach, I could see us winning in kind of a, stodgy, but yeah, just a different way. I mean, it might not be the most pleasant viewing, and I'd obviously prefer to see the former, but yeah, I could see it being a game that we try to, slow down and just go, kind of go long and direct, and could win in that fashion. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because I think if you averaged out like most people's Premier League table predictions for this season, I think we'd be within, we'd be like a spot within each other. Brighton and Spurs would be. So it's a team that it's going to be interesting to see like how we fare against, a team that I think a lot of people consider we're on kind of a similar level as.
I mean, the last 3 out of the last 4 appearances, they've kind of clapped us around. Obviously the last one, we were drunk. Let's face it. You know what I mean? And if not drunk, definitely hungover. But then you got the 3-2 where they came from 2-0 down. We beat them 2-1, but then they did us 4-2 in December of 23 as well. So I don't know if there's been any cup games in between here, but other than that, I mean, that's not pretty. But then we haven't been pretty defensively over those last couple of years, 2-3 years. So could be completely different. Like the unknown quantity is Thomas Frank's Tottenham, right? Because it's just completely 180 from what we've been used to the last 18 months.
I think you guys both kind of hit the nail on the head there with there's not a whole lot you can go with in terms. Honestly, it might even be pertinent to go and look at the Brentford kind of matches versus Brighton to see more how Thomas Frank's style of play. I do think right now we are still kind of showing a pretty similar method of play to Frank's Brighton. I expect that to evolve, but I do think that the emphasis on defensive solidity and the way in which we go about that is something that is pretty similar to the way that Brentford did it in the past few seasons. I also looked a little bit at Brighton before the match. I watched the City game. They looked good. Obviously, any team needs to look good to beat City, in my opinion, including us, obviously. But I was looking at their center backs, and neither of them are particularly dominant in the air. Both of them are in like the 50, 60th percentile for aerial duels won. And part of that might be because they have so much of the ball that they're just not receiving as many aerial duels to like, win or lose. But that might be something that we can, take advantage of, given that we are now really good at corners and stuff. So I would not be shocked if we were able to score again from some sort of set piece situation. That's my not so bold prediction for the match. Anyone else have any not so bold predictions or bold predictions? I don't know. How bold do you feel like being?
It's tough. It's like hard to know. Like, are we gonna? Because I like a draw maybe, but we also aren't really conceding. And not to say like we're not gonna concede, but I don't feel like their attack is like they've lost a lot of players in recent years. Like it is kind of a team in transition a little bit. So it's not like there's like surefire. Like they're still starting Danny Welbeck when he's fit, kind of thing, and he's playing well, but. Yeah, so I mean, I guess first score prediction, I'll try to be positive, and I'll go with a 1-0 to Spurs.
I don't want to tempt fate. I don't want to lull myself into a full sense of security, because I kind of agree with everything that Max just said. But then I look at us against Bournemouth, and I'm like, well, Bournemouth lost almost their entire back line, and they managed to put on a defensive masterclass. Although I say masterclass, were we really at the races up front? So again, not really don't know. It could. I put myself down for a 2-2 earlier, but it could be a 4-0 either way. I mean, I don't know. Could Thomas Frank's Tottenham be done 4-0? No. Could I see him beating him 4-0? Potentially. So yeah, I don't know. All over the place with this one, lads.
Bournemouth.
Big up, Reece Rig. Sorry.
Yeah. Big ups. I just wanted to say, with the Bournemouth thing, because I do think people group Bournemouth and Brighton because of their success, basically. But Bournemouth achieved the result they did because they like gave us the ball, and I don't think Brighton will do that. So that's the one thing where I'm like, if we go, sorry, not to get into an analysis video, Jim's got that coming out, but you know what I mean. I do think that if we can set up well out of possession, we can kind of do like a reverse Bournemouth.
Yeah, no, I think just like you said, just because they're in similar like spots as like clubs does not mean they play in similar ways. I do think that they are not going to set up in the same way that Bournemouth did, which will mean that, I mean, maybe they will, but that's not how I'd expect them to. And that means that we won't have the same issues we had against Bournemouth. We'll have new exciting issues, or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just, like Drew said, we'll beat them 4-0, which is all I heard from what he said, is that we're guaranteed to beat them 4-0. I think I'm between a 1-0 and a 1-1. I think that this is going to be a cagier affair. I'm not super worried about their attack, but I'm super confident in our defense. But they're not a defensively poor team either. So it's not something that I'm necessarily. I don't think this is going to be some like Max said, a basketball match. I don't think this is going to be something that we're going to be looking back on. It's like an instant classic. It's going to be, I think, another Thomas Frank game where we I don't want to say grind it out because that feels like negative, but it'll be a tactical game in which each team will have a few chances, not too many, but enough. And I think I'm going to go with I'm never going to predict not a win, because this is a Tottenham podcast after all. If I had to pretend to be non-biased, I would probably say 1-1, but I'm not. So I'm going to say 2-0. I'm going to take the goal. I'm going to pretend that their goal becomes an own goal, and 2-0. Easy.
2-0 makes sense because it's like early long throw goal, and then they're going for it in the last 10 minutes, so we get another one.
Exactly. The perfect game, basically.
Perfect Frank masterclass.
All right.
I do have one last thing, if you don't mind, because I don't often get to brag about stuff like this. But as you North American guys know, along with our other North American listeners, there is something that happens called Premier League mornings in America, where the Premier League, basically the guys that do MSNBC, I don't know what it is now. It changes so many times. But basically the panel and crew, Robbie Earle, Rebecca Lowe, and Robbie Mustoe, are going to be here in town doing the Premier League morning. So I'm going to be up at 4 a.m. going downtown Kansas City to watch Spurs on the big screen. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But tomorrow night, before that, one of the bars, which is a local Tottenham Hotspur bar, is having Ledley King come and do a Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be wearing all three of the Spurs kits, one underneath the other, because I hear apparently Jermaine Defoe is in town as well.
Oh,
I'm going to stalk these
No
people,
way.
and I am going to try my best to get some sort of video or a picture or something. And I'm going to do the thing where you take a shirt off and you got a shirt underneath and have one of them sign it. And then they got to take another shirt off and have a shirt underneath and have another one of them sign it. So I'm sure I'm going to make myself look like a complete fanboy fool. But it's not often. I mean, I've been here since 2008, and this is about as close as I'm ever going to get to Tottenham royalty. So yeah, stoked that it's happening in Kansas City.
I was gonna say I wish it would happen out here, but I understand why they wouldn't do a Premier League morning on the West Coast. I feel like that wouldn't make much sense because it would basically.
I think they have. They've done it in Oakland, I think.
Well, the next I I will pull up next time they get here. But
Yeah,
I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous of your ability to do that in Kansas City.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun, boys.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the LAFC game, Max. We got to
Oh
go
yeah,
see Son.
yeah. I saw Son
Sonny.
for the first time in person. He scored a goal about a minute and a half in, so that was brilliant. Nice bucket list item ticked off. I actually was like a few hours before the game walking through this like outdoor mall area in Bay Area, whatever. And the LAFC like team bus was parked there, and a bunch of employees were hovering around, and there were a bunch of Korean fans waiting. And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm about to just run into Son right now, just walking through the shopping center." But then it was like, "Oh no, they're not coming out for like 4 hours." So,
Damn,
wasn't possible. But that aside, it was a great experience, and it was a hilarious game too.
we got to see the epic highs and lows of MLS football. I guess MLS soccer. It's in the name.
There you go.
I suppose. Sorry to the Europeans who listen to this when they wake up.
Sounding very EA over there, DJ. It's in the name.
MLF. Exactly. We'll change it to the MLF. Major League Football. We'd have so many confused people over here.
Lots of annoyed people.
Because everyone cares so much about this argument. Sorry. I'm going to apologize specifically to Jim. I'm sorry I used the word soccer. He always jumps on me when I do it. When I started as on podcasting, I would call it soccer sometimes, and he would pause the podcast and be like, "What did you just call it?"
Does Joe say football?
I think
because
so.
the Aussies say soccer, don't they?
Soccer.
I think they said exactly like that. I'm pretty sure that's exactly how they
I've
say
never
it.
heard him say.
Don't
football.
they ask it with an inflection like it's a question all the time? Soccer? Is it soccer?
Yeah, the soccer is.
That was actually pretty good to my untrained ear. All right, and
hopefully Joe watches this back.
On that note, where we've offended basically every we've offended every person who watches football, soccer. We'll leave it there, and we will be back around the same time next week.
Nice one, guys.
Yeah, have a good one, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.